Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back. Hey, it's episode 251. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast, doing it all off-season long. Try to do this live on Sunday nights. The next couple Sundays, we'll have to talk about scheduling because we've got some holidays and such coming up. But in the meantime, here we are together, some Sox therapy on the YouTube channel of ours. Subscribe, pass it along to other Sox fans in your life. Audio available absolutely everywhere. Hey, Sox have got some catcher depth. The Royals are doing some things. What's happening with the Cease market, all that kind of stuff, and more. With my very good friend, diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Oh, I like how you put "and more." That's a good tease for people to
And
make sure they
more.
stick around to the 45th minute of this episode tonight. Hey, man, it's all quiet on the Western Front. I'm a little bit shocked that other things haven't happened, but it's been a quiet little bit here. I thought there'd be more movement with the Ohtani news and other things happening, but it is what it is. We continue to wait, and the market is being set by other people for other things, and we just continue to watch, other teams make moves and be in the news, I guess.
Yeah, I want to talk about that, namely Royals and even Diamondbacks, because Jeff Passan had a great tweet on what the Diamondbacks are doing. Tyler jumped in the comments early, which I appreciate, and said, ready for the season to start. It was a rough one last year, but I'm ready. I'm ready for White Sox baseball. At least I believe that's what he's alluding to. You, Pat, being a huge Bears fan, much bigger Bears fan than I am, and I know there's a lot of folks that tune in that are also huge Bears fans. And boy, what a year after coming off of what happened with the White Sox. Are you ready for Sox baseball? Are you ready for, it to be hurt all over again? Do you miss baseball already here in mid-December?
Yeah, I'll start missing baseball as we maybe get into January, February, the cellar, if you will, of the winter, right? When it's really just not fun. Most days are gray. It'll be cold eventually around here, I'm sure. And you'll be just longing for those spring days, right? I don't think I really will be longing for White Sox baseball, this team, as it's constructed. If it doesn't change drastically between now and January or February, I think I'll just be longing for the springtime. And baseball in general is always a great thing, but I don't know that the Sox have done anything for me to say, wow, I can't wait to sit down on a Tuesday night and watch a game at 7:00 and see how the Sox are doing. I'm not there yet. How about you?
I'm not there yet, but you know me, and I know there's so many other like-minded folks. I mean, there were some conversations I had just on social media and with other people this past week of, I can't stop. I can't stop being absolutely all in on the White Sox. Am I happy? Am I disappointed? I'm not happy, and yes, I am very disappointed, but I'm going to be right back in there. Pitchers and catchers report, and all throughout February, and of course spring training, and right there an opening day and beyond. I'll consume just as many games, if not more, than last year, and try to get a sense of the direction. If we know it, if we know identity, culture, and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not missing it. I'm not saying, man, I can't wait for this season to get going because of the lack of direction. I'm confused still. I think that's
Yeah.
what we're going to hit on in this episode. It kind of played in a very fan-centric way of what do you want this White Sox team to do? What are the options right now? And there's a lot of offseason left. Okay. But where could they potentially go in this quote unquote weak AL Central with everything that was rumored and what has happened so far? It's years ago when the Hawks were, when they went on their run, and the Bulls have probably been like that at times. But this time of year, it's like I want this type of jersey. I want this player. Kids are asking for these types of things. Adults are asking and wanting these types of, the team gear for the holidays. Do you get the sense that the Sox are a coveted thing? I want that jersey, or I want White Sox gear, that kind of stuff, because of the murkiness that is White Sox baseball.
Well, I'd say for sick people like my kids, yes, but I don't know if in other homes it's like, well, I got to have that guy's jersey or this guy's jersey, and I mean, you asked the question like, what direction can the White Sox go? I mean, it's just you don't really know because they're not talked about in any kind of rumors other than trading Dylan Cease. It's like they're not in on this player. They're not a team that could be not even a seat at the table. Boy, do I long for the discussion of when this team was at least at the table. Yeah. They're not even in the restaurant right now. They have no interest in eating at all. They're on a fast. This team is fasting, Nick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's really hard to like kind of go, oh, this is exciting. There's something to discuss here. It's juicy because they could get this type of player. I mean, it's really just very dull right now. It's just it's a wasteland of conversation right now. I mean, I know that you and I were going to do this tonight and we'd have discussion, but boy, it would just be nice to say, the Sox were talked about with this player or that player. It's just, and I get it. They're not there. If they were in a different situation in terms of, being in a contending team, maybe it'd be a different story. But boy, oh boy, it's just like not to be even mentioned with on anything. It's kind of disheartening as a fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's slow all over baseball. I thought it would have picked up a little bit more after, Ohtani. I think there's a lot of folks waiting for Yamamoto, where he's going to go. Snell, Montgomery out there, and then you got some other arms that we can maybe discuss depending on the direction that the Sox really want to go in 2024. There was a signing though recently. Sox bulking up on just like catching depth. Chucky Robinson, you are now a member of the Chicago White Sox. According to MLB trade rumors, Robinson didn't see any action beyond AAA level last year, even after hitting a very solid 290, 356, 450 over 413 plate appearances with AAA Louisville. The Cincinnati Reds have depth, so there's no surprise on why Chucky Robinson was made available. Robinson, 29 years old recently. Happy birthday to Chucky Robinson. Has been assigned to AAA Charlotte. So I believe Stassi from Atlanta that we got. Well, he went LA to Atlanta to us. I don't believe he had much, if any, 2023 MLB experience. So
it's not a requirement. It's you get in the interview. It's good to see. I can see you have a lot of great things on here. You have zero experience. That's okay. We're not looking for any experience with this position. Just come on in. We're going to give you a try. You're going to get experience somewhere. So
that those types of moves that have been made lead you to believe that they're just grabbing some players here and there. There's nothing wrong with having some depth. Let's be honest, our farm system is pretty bad. So let's get some guys in place, some ducks in a row. They're saying one thing, and by they, I mean, the Sox brass. Getz, you hear it from Grifol, Reinsdorf, when he did speak towards the end of this past season, and he wasn't trying to get his foot out of his mouth with the whole shooting situation. The division. So fortunate we're in the AL Central. We've talked about this on this podcast. Others have talked about it. I am so tired of White Sox in positions to speak. So general manager, assistant general manager, manager, owner. Oh, because we're in the AL Central, we can do this, and maybe it could be, a quick patchwork. Okay. I mean, what have you done with the AL Central to really make me believe that? You've been in the AL Central for a while, and it's been kind of like this for a while, and you've never taken it. You've never gone for the jugular. right? It's these little moves here and there to kind of just, do it your way, so to speak, win on your way. So the Royals have been making some moves, Pat, and there was a write-up by Rosenthal in The Athletic, Henter Renfro, Michael Wacha, a few others. Maybe they don't move the needle too much, but with the Royals in their situation, I don't want to say they're outdoing us, well, we can't, this is unbelievable moves by the Royals, but the reasoning behind what they're doing, and it's a really interesting article, it makes sense. And it's like, well, if you believe that this division is indeed winnable and for anybody for the taking, well, then grab some of these moves, like be a little bit more active when you see somebody. So this was a bit of a blurb from Rosenthal's article recently. Frustrated as the Royals are with the lottery, which again, there's no real incentive for tanking this day and age. Club officials estimate the 2-year savings in first round signing bonuses will be in the range of $5 million. The actual number might end up being lower, but the point is this: the lottery, pushed by the Players Association as an anti-tanking measure in the most recent collective bargaining agreement, is having its desired effect. No longer does finishing with a poor record guarantee a top pick. So they're making some moves here and there because, that's what they see is like, well, do you either do a full-on rebuild and just tear the thing down to the studs and pick that direction, or do you say, well, I can grab some pieces here and there, and if we're saying living in this world where the AL Central is for anybody, well, then I'm in it. 500 might get me, and if you're in, you're in. And a lot of people are saying this day and age, like, well, all you need to do is get into the tournament and anything can happen. So I found that interesting as a fan, as a Sox fan, a diehard committed Sox fan. Are you saying to yourself these dull winter days, you know what? They're not going to be much in 2024. Maybe you hold on to Cease. Maybe you grab a couple guys here and there, and maybe you do just get into the tournament. Just give me something exciting to watch this summer. Could you see yourself going that route as a fan?
That's an interesting thing. So if you don't get the haul that you're looking for, you just say F it. Let's hold on to them and let's roll the dice. And maybe we do get the return to custom levels type of play out of a Yohan Moncada, right? Which a custom levels, I guess, is 1 year that he's actually a productive player. Maybe you hold on to the fact that Eloy Jimenez can hit 50 home runs with his great power. I guess you could look at it that way, Nick. But I'd also say you still would have to add to this team. You still don't really have a bona fide, legitimate right fielder. Okay, there's a guy out there that could play right field, that played on the north side, that I think maybe would fit the bill if you wanted to spend some money. That would take some. Now that would get me excited. Wouldn't that get you excited if Bellinger all of a sudden was on the south side? There's no way in hell that would ever happen. But you're telling me, let's infuse some life into the Chicago White Sox fan base and take some of the money that we've probably saved over the years on not investing in players and actually invest in a big time bat that would solve a lot of problems from a left-handed power situation, from a, he can play right field. He can solve that issue for you. You're not going to be searching for years and years on end again for a right fielder. It would solve a lot for you. And you could sell me on, now I could envision this lineup now. Now I can envision this thing working a little bit. If Kopech now can pitch like an ace, if Cease is going to pitch like he did 2 years ago, man, maybe with those two guys at the top of our rotation with that lineup and this weak division that we're in, you could talk me into that.
Yeah. I keep going back to what was said. You kind of have to go, and I get it. Like, don't pay attention to sometimes what's said. watch the actions, you know, and I should know better as a Sox fan. But when it's said so many times by so many different people, and now this article comes out about what the Royals are kind of thinking and how they're leaning, because, you know, the Sox aren't the only ones in the Central saying, oh, this is kind of winnable. Like, nobody's making any moves. Like, it's for anybody.
Well, you think about, too, not just the Royals, but the Tigers. The Tigers were
Sure.
supposed to be a team that was supposed to
Sure.
contend in this division 2 years ago, Nick. I remember very distinctly, I think it was in 2021 or going into this past year, where it was, okay, whose division this is going to be? And a lot of people really like Detroit at some point. Now, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. And I don't know what the Detroit Tigers line, roster looks like to this moment. But that was a team that was talked about to be on the come. So do they look at it too and go, man, this could be our division as well. We don't have to live in the basement for the next several years. We could be that pop-up winner of this division this year. It could be our turn. It just feels like it's not like a merry-go-round of who's going to win this division. And really, would it take a lot of firepower on your end to upend the Guardians, who were really not that good this past year, or the Twins that kind of came out of nowhere after having an awful season the year before? It probably wouldn't take that much, Nick. It would only really take a little bit of money at this point. You don't have to invest a ton into your farm system in this division if you don't want to. If you can make some strategic moves here or there and invest money wisely, you could probably be in contention in this division every year. Not contention to win a World Series every year, because you're not going to be building a team for the long term like you should. But if you just wanted to say, let's try and win this division this year. This is the year I want to try and win it. And you'd go for that approach, that would be great. But the Sox haven't operated, even when they had a roster that was built to win. They didn't act in that way because they never pushed their chips in and went, okay, there's two pieces out there that we need to go get. Now, the only time that they really did that, I guess, from a trade perspective, is when they went out and got Kimbrel. It was like, this is the best player that we can get at the trade deadline. We're going to add to our already pretty
for what they wanted to do. They absolutely wanted that type of, lockdown closer, reliever, add to the pen.
Yeah. But in terms of, there's a guy out there that can really make us better, and we got to invest actual hard dollars in it. They don't operate that way.
Yeah, you really can throw money at a problem. You absolutely can. The Sox just, they don't do it. Maybe they've tried. That can be an argument, absolutely. But they try on their own terms. Mm-hmm. They put themselves in their own kind of pen and their own limitations, and this is how we're going to operate. They're not going to play someone else's game. And that's how they go about doing it. So around this time last year, we heard from Rick Hahn about, to your point, accustomed levels. Guys are going to, we're hoping for guys to return to the back of their baseball card, for guys to get healthy. We can't have another repeat of injuries like we did before. We're hoping. And I had these types of conversations through lockdown, through the winter months, and had them with you, and I know other folks did, of, okay, if that's your plan, all right, I'll buy into that plan. That's what you're going to live on. You're going to be quick to sign Clevenger, and then you're going to hope for a bunch of other things. Okay, well, let's see. Because I'm assuming in the back of their minds, they're also thinking the same thing about the Central. Well, if we got these guys to return to what they're supposed to be, or just show up, we might have something here. And it was really Robert, the only one that obviously went above and beyond in 2023. So now the new stuff I'm getting, just from what I'm reading, and there hasn't been a ton, but from the winter meetings and, even before, right after the season, we don't have to do much with this division. We don't have to do so much. We don't have to be, desperate to give away seats, which is smart. I understand that. We want to get faster, and we want this, and we want this identity and culture. And those are all great things. That's a lot. That's a lot to put on your plate in an off season. But I'm kind of at a point where, like I was last off season, well, prove it to me then. Mm-hmm. Show me, White Sox, that you believe this division is winnable. and you can compete in 2024. If that's what you're saying, then show me. I haven't seen that yet. It's a very early off season still. Hoping for a few other moves at this point. And we'll talk about the available second baseman and right fielders. There's not, I mean, it's not rich in terms of free agents. I think trades might have to happen in a different way to get creative, but you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
great. I'll buy into that, but go then do it. Like that's what I'm looking for here. And your points at the beginning of this episode, yeah. And maybe they're keeping it quiet, but I haven't heard much.
Well, and you have to remember too, going into this offseason, Nick, it wasn't a great class either in terms of free agents. There wasn't a lot out there to really go after. It wasn't the coveted offseason of a lot of exciting movement in baseball. So do you just do moves that do moves, or do you look at, and I haven't had the opportunity to look at this, and I'm sure you haven't either. What is the free agent class looking like for next year? And let's kind of tread water a little bit now. We know we're not really in a contention window. If we can kind of do what they've been doing, and that's acquire some depth at positions they've needed it, quite frankly, in catcher. Maybe they look at the next class and go, that's when we can really go out there and jump on some things. So let's kind of bide our time a little bit, tread water, and go after it when it makes a little more sense, instead of just going and spending foolishly now when we can see the forest for the trees in the following year. Again, I don't know if that's how Getz operates, or I don't know if that's really the plan, other than if they're looking at it from a year-to-year basis and how they make their team theoretically better from a year in and a year out basis. But maybe that's the way they look at it and go, if this lines up the way we think, and the shortstop's coming up, probably and ready to play an everyday position in next season, not really in this season, maybe by the end of this season he'll be up. Maybe that's when I'm not going to say invest a ton, because they never have and they never will. But maybe they look at that class and go, that's when we can fill in with second base. And that's when we can fill in finally with right field, or whatever the holes are with pitching, starting pitching. That'll be the time we go for it, because our young stud will be up, and, we'll have another season with Andrew Vaughn theoretically improving. And maybe that's when you can have the quick fix of filling in the gaps with some free agents.
So I guess we've talked about what the Sox maybe we think that they're going to do. I don't know if we've really talked what we want them to do. And maybe these are conversations, folks, and thank you so much for jumping in here live on Sunday night on the Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. Subscribe, pass that along. And, maybe these are conversations you force yourself to have with other Sox fans during the holidays, family, friends that you get together. If you can stomach talking White Sox, I'm curious what other Sox fans would want. Maybe not necessarily think, or what's the smart thing, but what do you want? When the Sox have had opportunities to finish the job and go for the jugular and get the missing pieces, they haven't. When they had opportunities after 2021 winning the division to add on to a winning club, and try to cement their spot in the AL Central, they didn't. So do you think in a couple of years, if certain prospects hit and the young guys are exciting and we've got, wow, we're the talk of the town again, that this ownership group, if they're still intact, is going to finish things off, is going to take us to the promised land where we will be in the ALCS for a couple times, get to the World Series? I don't know. That's an interesting question. Right now, I have these moments where I'm like, maybe it just keeps these. Maybe going for the jugular and getting to the promised land and getting sustainability, maybe that's really never going to happen. They talk about it, and sure, we all hope for it. But the reality is maybe it's just getting to the postseason. We've all seen a lot of bad White Sox baseball and have very few postseason moments. And the Sox in general, for 120-something years, have had very little postseason moments. If you think the division is weak, if you think you can just do a few things, maybe you do that. And you just say, I'm just living to get in. I'm just living to get in the postseason. And for me as a fan, just to have some exciting White Sox baseball, through the summer, through September, because I don't know if they'll ever really finish things off to create. And there's no guarantee, but to really go for it and do their absolute best, to cement things.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it, Nick. I agree with you that this ownership group, particularly the chairman of the board, is only going to get you so far. There's a ceiling on how high he'll allow, his the people that work underneath him to go, right. If they win, it's going to be in spite of a lot of what the ownership does. It's going to be in spite of the lack of vision and the lack of ability to make, let's say, some bold moves and really invest heavily in things. So it'll be a pop up here or there that it happens. But those are nice and enjoyable because they're kind of like a nice surprise once in a while. So I guess I could see that, and I guess I could see the in the near future, not this year, this team contending again just because. But I guess I would take it. Because it'd be nice to just have. It'd be kind of nice just to have an average team, actually. When you think about it, wouldn't it just be nice to have a team that was 3 or 4 games over 500 by the end of the year, and somewhat exciting to watch, and not a team that you want to hate on every day? That would be kind of nice after the last couple seasons. So this is how beaten down we are as fans.
What I would like, Pat, is a club, an organization where top down and bottom up, it was all in sync.
Yeah.
Everybody knew what White Sox baseball was about. At every level, it's the best of the best that are doing everything that they can, the smartest of the smart, the most innovative. The organization is employing whatever they can do to make sure they're on the cutting edge and how they scout, how they develop, and it's a machine. The White Sox kind of become a machine, and what White Sox baseball is all about. So they are absolutely, like, everybody's clicking on all cylinders. Everybody's in sync. And you don't have to constantly find like, oh, we need a new culture. We need a new identity. We need chemistry. We need leadership. We don't know what's going on. Like, everything fell apart. It's like, well, when you have that machine going, it really doesn't fall apart because you have checks and balances, and people don't put up with the BS. That's what I would ultimately want, if that's even possible or if it makes sense. But that's not what we have. And there's a lot of question marks, as we get into the holidays, which traditionally have been kind of quiet, and then we'll see what emerges, early 2024. The Diamondbacks are having themselves. Before I get into that, let me just say, by the way, I still have a few more Good Guys Talk Back T-shirts, Pat. Inventory is pretty low.
Are you being serious right now, or are you just?
I'm being very serious, and I want to give a shout out to Kyle. We've got our first international T-shirt that's been sent out, and he's received it. Calgary. Kyle is a listener from Calgary, and he has got himself a Good Guys Talk Back shirt out there. So we're international now, Pat.
That's huge. That's big.
Yeah.
We are the #1 White Sox podcast in Canada. Maybe.
I'll have to look at certain numbers there. We're probably in the.
Maybe
we're at
Calgary?
the table.
Maybe at least in Calgary.
We're at the table though. We're in the conversation. So
there's a few shirts left.
Inventory is $25.
7 shopping days left until Christmas. So
$25. That's including shipping right to your door. Just get in touch with me on Twitter X. Send me a message, and I'll get you all set up with a size and all that kind. But I wanted to give a shout out to Kyle in Calgary.
Thank you, Kyle, for listening, and thank you for ordering the shirt. And that's fantastic. Wear it proud.
Yeah. So the Diamondbacks having, a a positive offseason right now. And Jeff Passan tweeted this out, which, again, remember, everybody, remember our Sox fans, the Diamondbacks are a team that Pedro Grifol talked so highly about recently, as this is the team that we should kind of be emulating, and what they did to the Sox towards the end of the season and how they played. And like, I want us to be the Diamondbacks. Also, I want us to be the Royals of like 2014, 2015, in that world. But the Diamondbacks, and it's one thing to say, okay, that's how we're going to do things, but you have to have the talent, right? You got to have the actual pieces to be able to do what you wish. So since the Diamondbacks went to the World Series, they have signed Eduardo Rodriguez, 4 years, $80 million. Sox could have done that. Re-signed Gurriel, 3 years, $42 million. Traded for Suarez, and they're planning on adding a power-hitting DH. Win, then improve. Passan posted how it should be. And that's going for the jugular, especially if they keep going for more moves. You're playing to win. You're not playing to just simply kind of not lose, and that's going for it. And it's early, and I know other teams might try, but jump the gun, man. If you see something out there, and this is how you can improve your team, and go for it, I love that kind of stuff. I guess going back to what you wanted for the White Sox, I'd like that for the White Sox.
That would be nice. I like that they want a power hitting designated hitter. May I show you Gavin Sheets? At one point, we were very bullish on a Gavin Sheets. He could play DH for you every day.
We're around this anniversary of the bullish.
Left-handed power of a Gavin Sheets. He'd be hitting it in that swimming pool. They'll all be over that swimming pool, and that'd be great. What can we get for a Gavin Sheets, you think?
Oh, I don't think much. A few baseballs, some rosin bags. Some of those weights that they put on the bats in the on deck circle to just kind of get ready. Little things like that.
Some resistance bands, possibly. We need those.
They love them. Sox love those resistant bands. More bands, please.
Pull hamstrings a lot. We could use extra resistance bands. So I think that would be fantastic. And going back to the Diamondbacks, they are so far, according to the Jeff Passan you just mentioned, third in terms of investment, in terms of spending this offseason, at $122 million, behind the Phillies at $172, and the Dodgers, who have spent $717 million this offseason so far. So there's quite a chasm.
But it's structured in a fun way, so that everybody lost their mind over.
We do fun things. We'll pay it later.
Now, Sox have spent money. They're not like Cubs
they have
spent zero, I believe. Cubs spent zero, which is everybody
spent more than zero. $16.75 million, which was just right about the middle.
Well, that seems par for the course for the White Sox, right in the middle there.
Kind of in the middle of the pack here.
Spot,
the Yankees, Twins, Rockies, Padres, Marlins, Mariners, Cubs, Blue Jays have spent nothing. Now, does that mean that ultimately that the Sox will be a better team than those teams that have spent zero? No, that doesn't mean that at all. But I just think it's interesting that the Diamondbacks that were, in the World Series, the teams that were in the World Series or in the playoffs last year seem to always want to find ways to improve. If they didn't win it, it wasn't good enough. Let's find a way to improve and get better so we can be the team holding the trophy at the end of the year. And that's the kind of mentality I'd like my team to have. Is, okay, we weren't good enough last year. So what do we need to do to get better? How can we attack it and get better? But right now, it's almost like we're kicking rocks around and just kind of waiting. And again, waiting for the market to get settled, waiting on other things, waiting on trades to materialize. And we'll see how that happens. I'm curious, and I know you have a very strict rundown of show, but I'm very curious of your thoughts right now of Getz being, not jumping at the first maybe couple cease offers he's seen, and being very shrewd in the way he's playing this game so far.
I don't mind that. I think if that's your big fish and you are going to retain Luis Robert Jr., at least that kind of seems to be the vibe, that's your big asset. Sox don't have a lot of other assets if they're going to try to flip and try to, bolster the farm system, kind of if you get rid of Cease, you're not competing in 2024. I'm sorry. I'm not going to go in right now with Kopech as your number one.
No, you don't feel comfortable about that?
I'm
but we're going to think about putting him in the bullpen
I'm
too.
sorry.
But he could be our number one starter. I don't know. Good luck. Get ready.
What a message. What a message.
You're ready for anything.
That young man. You got great stuff to be in the bullpen. You very well could be in the bullpen, but I think you still have makeup. And then you all of a sudden you're my number one starter now. What about that for a guy that, is still trying to figure out a lot of things? So I'm okay with how he's playing it. I mean, get the absolute most, but it's that tricky game of, are you going to rub people the wrong way? Are you going to scare people off? Because other people are saying, you know what, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to go out and get my arm. I'm going to go spend money. I'm not going to give away some of my prospects. You like what I've got in my farm system? That's cute. I don't need to give that up because I spend money. That's how I get the things that I want, and that's what I'm going to do with some of the remaining arms. And maybe the Sox are asking too much. The thing with Getz, though, we discussed it last episode, and I've mentioned it so many other times, is he's so new at this. Maybe there's a little skittish of, I don't want to get this wrong because this is my first big offseason, and I've got this asset here, Dylan Cease, that everybody wants. And you get, you tie yourself up into knots because you overthink it a little bit, and then it's gone. And that comes from a lot of inexperience, I think.
Well, it's interesting because you look at Dylan Cease, you look at Chris Getz in the situation he's in. Yes, he's new, but I would say that his predecessors, they were like, well, we've got jobs for life. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
We miss out on this. But, Chris is coming into a situation now where, again, the ownership group could be in flux in the next several years. So it's not like he's not going to have as long of a leash. He doesn't know maybe who his boss will be in the next several years. Who knows where their address will be?
And Pat, for me, it's always, we do this as Sox fans. We want this. But it ultimately comes of, what's Jerry's message? What is his willingness? Yes, I know we hear from so many people that he dies with every loss and he cares about winning so very, very much. Well, he hasn't shown it. Show me. Okay. What's his message to Getz privately in Grifol? Like, look, say the right things. Say what you're trying to do and how you're mad and you don't like this team. But fellas, if we can sniff 75 wins, which would be, wow, I'd be shocked right now, if no other moves are made. That would be insane to me that they've made 75 wins. Do that. I'm fine with that. Take the heat. And if you take the heat for me, you've got a job for a long, long time. But secretively, that's all I'm caring about. Make it feel like, we're really trying to put something together. But if I'm making money, and we all know Reinsdorf's making money, his numbers came out between the Bulls and White Sox. He's made his money and then some. As long as I'm making money, it's all good. Honestly, I don't see the thing that other people see of how he cares more than anybody and he wants to win. And he has not demonstrated that.
It's interesting because I can't think of, at least as a Chicago sports figure, that has such a different, has seen so differently by so many different people, right? He's either the beloved, loyal owner. There was even talks of, how much Jordan loves Jerry Reinsdorf and how much, ex-players love him. And again, I referenced the time I had played golf with AJ Pierzynski and how much he loves him and knows that he loves baseball and that he, again, wants to win more than anything else. And but then you look at it from the actions that are put out and some of the things that Jerry says. It's probably a good thing that Jerry doesn't speak very often because he sounds kind of like a buffoon when he does speak, right? Or he's kind of lost it a little bit.
He says the quiet part's loud and the loud part's quiet. It's like, I don't know if you should have said that out loud to your
Yeah,
fan base type of
yeah.
thing.
So it's the only thing I can say, and it's sad to say, but again, this run eventually will end. Whether it gets any better, I have no idea, because I'm more interested in seeing the succession and the plan that's in place for when the eventuality that this team is no longer, the chairman is no longer Jerry Reinsdorf, how that all, unfolds, whether this team is sold eventually someday or whether it's kept within the family. And that could determine a lot of things. And that could also be, if you look at how things have changed, when you had mentioned the Blackhawks a little bit ago, when things changed and Rocky took over. And again, the Hawks are in a different situation nowadays, but that change was a positive change for the Blackhawks in a major way. And I don't know that even how bad the Sox are now in their organization, I don't think they're even close to being as dreadful of as an organization as the Hawks were at that point. Maybe not that close. I don't think they're the
Not
worst
yet, but
franchise.
we're there. We're almost there. Yeah.
You think we're the almost the worst franchise in sports?
I would say in terms of ownership, baseball ownership, Jerry's right down there, with a small collection of others. In terms of baseball franchise, I don't think we're as bad. I mean, the Hawks were really, really bad in all of sports, not just hockey. When things were before, Rocky's father, Bill Wirtz, passed away. I don't think we're bottom in all of sports, but I don't think. But then again, I sometimes have to step out, of my world and take a look at the big picture, and I haven't done that in a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I might be surprised. Maybe they are, looked at in terms of all of sports. Such an underperforming, underachieving, like how everything else is run. And I know you can't put like some of the intangibles, like you can't really put a number on, but just the PR mistakes, the things that have happened between ownership and fan base over the last 6 months, there's a disconnect. We talk about that. It's tough to put that in black and white and a number on it, but that's why I kind of asked you at the beginning, like, do you get a sense from your kids or from, and maybe this is for other people out there listening, what is the temperature on a interest in White Sox memorabilia and gear and jerseys and all that kind of stuff this holiday season? Are there marketable players?
Kids, kids these days, they're following other players. It doesn't really matter what team they play for. So if there's stars that they can gravitate towards, and I think somebody put in, Shohei Ohtani, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of young baseball fans, and there are young baseball fans out there, even though people will tell you there aren't. There's going to be a lot of people wearing Ohtani Dodgers jerseys. There just are. And it's kind of sad because I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm getting old and I'd like my kids, or I'd like kids of this generation. Okay, you're here, you're in the Chicago area. Whether I'm not going to tell you who you should root for, but if you're here, you should be a Sox fan or a Cubs fan. That's just how I feel about it. You shouldn't just go, no, I'm going to go flavor of the day. Where's that guy playing? I'll be a fan of him. And then when he's a free agent in 3 or 4 years and he goes somewhere else, I'll get his jersey when he goes to that team. I just think that's a really weak way to be a fan of any sports. Is that, do I sound like too get off my lawn yelling at a cloud old man right now?
Well, when we were growing up, players stuck with teams though, so if you became a fan of Cal Ripken Jr. or something, Ken Griffey Jr., I know he bounced a little bit, but he was on the Mariners for a long period of time. You kind of like, well, this guy's going to stay with his team most likely. That's so different now. But I get what you're saying, and we've discussed how the Sox had that opportunity a few years ago. When they were really on the up and up, and in 2020 and 2021, you had the opportunity to grab the city by the short hairs and say, hey, this is the team. We're going to continue to invest. We're going to continue to bring superstars in. So you can't ignore us. and so now again, we're back to, for them to be jumping up and down, notice us. Well, who are you? You don't even know who you are. So why should we notice you, type of thing? If the Sox are going to get noticed and they're going to, try to compete, you got to have pitching. You absolutely have to have pitching. When you think you have enough, go get some more. So we're waiting on guys. Yamamoto, as I mentioned, I think is the big one. Snell and Montgomery have to find homes, which I don't think are going to be on the south side, but wouldn't that be nice? I think you're looking at more guys like Alex Wood. I mean, Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea. Do you bring back Clevenger after he turns you down? Do you bring back Giolito on a 1-year prove it if nobody's really biting on Giolito? And you're deciding to retain Cease, and you're like, we might have something here if we bring back Giolito. I mean, would that interest you, Pat?
I do like guys on prove it deals. I do.
You love it.
I love guys that now.
Vince Velasquez, prove it.
Oh, is he available? By the way,
he is available.
You didn't list him in, or maybe the Dodgers gobbled him up. Maybe he was part of that $717 million.
I want all of your players, not just some of them.
I'd like to. Can we just be the league? So it would. Yeah, I mean, you rattle off a bunch of names there, and the bunch of names that you rattle off are better than we currently have on our starting staff. So I'm open to any and all of those because. Boy, you gotta have people to go out there and pitch on a day in and day out.
That's why I was fine with that Fuddy deal.
The Fuddy Duddy.
I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
Well, we'll just say it.
Yeah,
fatty.
You gotta have arms. Okay, he figured some things out in the KBO. Will it translate? We'll find out. The Sox are high. The Sox are bullish on it.
Fans on him. Then he'll really have some things figured out.
Lab, the Bannister and
the Golden Boy. Sure. Can't get fired.
There's a Cuban free agent, Rodriguez, Yariel Rodriguez. That seems like a very White Sox thing to do. Young guy,
do very well in Cuba.
I mean, look at the pipeline. So those are the types of things of I don't know what they're waiting for. Are they waiting for the ultimate package for Dylan Cease? And it's that's their first priority is to trade Dylan Cease. That's what they really want to do, is to go in a completely different direction, really go for a rebuild, maybe still dangle Eloy Jimenez and others. That's in my gut. I'm feeling like they're waiting for some team to give them exactly what they want because that's what they want to do. Or they would have already maybe spent here and there to get some pitching, that's out there. That's not terribly flashy. That's not in the upper class bin, but kind of we'll deal with it, but you never know. This guy might catch fire in a prove it situation. But you got to have it, man. There's no question about it. And that's what I keep going back to when people say, well, it's the Central. You never know. I agree, but you still have to have pitching in the Central. You gotta have a rotation.
Yeah.
I mean, is that too much to ask?
There's not really a rule in there that says you have to have a starting rotation.
There's not a.
You just have to field guys. So, yeah, Nick, I don't know that anything's going to happen. This week being as we enter into Christmas week, it'll be interesting to see if there's any kind of activity. I would imagine if there is, it would be early as folks get into their holiday break with their family, and it'll quiet down again. But I guess I could see that where it's okay, this is priority number one, and this is where we need to go before anything else can happen, because this will determine the plans, right? And then, but then how long do you wait if you don't get exactly what you want? And you go, okay, if we haven't made a move by January 10th, then we're gonna keep him. That's the plan. And now we have to invest in filling out a staff around him because we didn't get what we wanted.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I wonder if they have that. And I kind of hope they don't, because then you're going with a really weak deal. You almost have to know, you have to have the direction in your mind already. What direction is the team going to go? Are the White Sox going to be competitive in 2024? Are we really going to try to be in the conversation in 2024? Or do we recognize the situation and say, you know what, in all reality, it's probably 2026, maybe, where we can be back in that conversation? That decision should be made already. Because then if you're playing this game of like chicken with other teams and you have to have your house in order, I think, in terms of decisions. And if you don't get what you want for Dylan Cease, then you hold on to him. But the plan should still be to move him, I guess. Then maybe it's at the trade deadline. But I don't know if you're flipping the whole grand, I don't know if you're flipping things in the middle of the offseason, because you're not necessarily getting what you want for Dylan Cease on maybe January 20th or something.
Yeah, but if that's the thing that's holding up other moves, at some point you have to operate.
Well, then I would say, and maybe we're saying the same thing, but you take Dylan Cease off the market then.
Yeah,
I wouldn't just trade him for like, a sack of potatoes and say, well, we had to get rid of him because we've got a deadline here. Hey, time is money.
Potatoes are expensive these days, Nick. I mean, it'd be nice to have a couple sacks of potatoes.
Absolutely. I shouldn't say that so flippantly, especially around the holidays. So yeah, maybe it's, we're taking Cease. It's January 20th. We've removed Dylan Cease and we are now going for it. How about that message?
I think Pedro should deliver that message, because
I think it should be very. I think it should be traditionally when Sox Fest is, which is in between the AFC NFC Championship and the Super Bowl. So that off week, there should be just a scheduled press conference. There's obviously no Sox Fest, and it's just him in his off-duty minister gear, and just say, we're going for it. And
who's he talking to? Is it
whoever
only
shows
Scott
up?
Merkin?
Whoever
shows only Merck in the room.
It's just Scott. It's just Scott. And somehow by that little thing, we're going for it. Merkin's got an 8-paragraph email that he sends out.
And he's sending that newsletter out.
He's a pro, and he'll turn that into an article. So look, second base, right field. We've been talking about it since you and I were kids, probably. What are they going to do with this? It's still a mystery. This is what we have available here as we record episode 251 in mid-December. Some of these names might be familiar to you, Pat. Elvis Andrus.
Oh, I've heard of him, yes.
Yeah, 35 years old. Tony Kemp, Colton Wong, Adam Frazier, who used to be a guy that should have been on the White Sox a long time ago. Scope, Odor, Josh Harrison, 36 years old. He's looking for a job. Hanser Alberto. He, you know what? Maybe he couldn't operate in that culture, and he just needs a different situation, and maybe he's the guy. Lurie Garcia is off the board. He signed a minor league deal with the Atlanta Braves in early December. So don't knock on that window. The one that is that's been talked about the most is Whit Merrifield. That's the one we've heard so much about, right? In terms of free agents, this is not necessarily trading, of course. That can go different ways, but Merrifield, maybe the most logical if you're going that route in terms of free agent second baseman.
I mean, all of those. It's.
You like those? You like that list?
After you read off all those names, I don't smoke, but I feel like I could use a cigarette. It's just so exciting and gratifying to hear all those names.
That gets you in the lather. That gets you excited for that famous pitchers and catchers reporting.
Yes. Need another pack of Camels. Get me calmed down.
How about right field? Because that one, as we know, it's most likely not going to be Gavin Sheets. Please don't do that to him again. Please don't.
Let's do it. Let's run it back. The return to custom levels for Gavin Sheets in right field.
Oh my goodness.
8 home runs.
Hunter Renfroe, he's off the board. Signed with KC. Jason Hayward off the board. Tyler Naquin. Cole Calhoun, which maybe should have been a White Sox player a long time ago.
Did you just say Rory Calhoun?
Cole Calhoun.
Oh, Cole Calhoun.
Yeah. And then I'm looking at a guy that, I watched this guy play. I think he was with Toronto and then he went to Seattle. Teoscar Hernandez, 31 years old. That could be a guy that could get me a little excited if they brought him in. At least it answers a question. At least you went in an absolute lane and didn't try to cobble things together.
I like being in a lane.
Lanes are comfortable.
Yeah,
lanes are good.
Let's get in that lane. Let's stay in that lane. Nothing that you rattle off there got me all hot and bothered, Nick.
You didn't have to towel yourself off with that list.
Not after that. No,
it's weak. We knew it was going to be weak, this free agent.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's like why would we invest multiple years in this class when we know that there's, and again, I have not looked at the free agent class that comes out.
But do you think we're going to? What if you've got a prized possession next off season? We're doing it all over again. We were looking at what the free agent class was well in advance when Manny Machado and Bryce Harper became free agents. I was listening to a Chuck Garfien podcast months before that offseason. And it was like, man, look at that big board. Look at what we could be adding now. We've got the drafts and the prospects and all these young guns. And look at what, I wonder how this is all going to, because I'm sure the Sox have their sights on these guys. It could be a great free agent class next offseason. And this is a question that no one can answer. And that's why I love this type of podcast, because these are just fan-centric conversations. That's subjective. Do you think if we had a right fielder or a second baseman in the class next year, do you think the Sox would actually do it? And it's like, this is so obvious for us to go after this person. It makes so much sense. This would answer so many questions. Do you think they really would do that?
I don't know, but I just typed in, I just Googled MLB 2025 free agents. Guess who the first person that came up? Right fielder Michael Conforto. Maybe they're finally waiting. They're like, 2025, we can finally get our hands on Michael Conforto.
Yeah, anything's possible. That's a very White Sox thing. People want to know, like, what do the White Sox do? What are they good at? What's their identity? For the longest time, it was getting guys way past when they were supposed to get guys. It's like, finally, we've got our hands on this pitcher. That couldn't happen for a variety of reasons before, but now it's happening. That was kind of the White Sox way.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Let's wait Conforto in 2025.
Good T-shirt. That's a good T-shirt idea.
Not better than a Good Guys Talk Back T-shirt, which are still available.
Yeah, and I'll even kick
right in the next DM.
I'll kick in some stickers, and I've got only a handful of koozies. So we're going to have to do a new order in 2024.
Oh, well, we'll have to have our budget meeting then.
Yes, of course. Before I give you the Pedro quote of the week, I'll give you something from our dear friend and still part of the organization, Tony La Russa. Some clarification on Tony La Russa's involvement. La Russa served as the Diamondbacks chief baseball analyst, special assistant to Red Sox president of baseball operations, Dave Dombrowski, and senior advisor of baseball operations for the Angels before Reinsdorf rehired him to manage again. La Russa describes his role with the White Sox as putting my 2 cents in. This is a direct quote now from TLR. The other 98% comes from them. He said, the fans deserve to know I'm a 2%er. The 98 comes from an outstanding front office and the leadership on the field. It would be a mistake to not know the reality of how we're putting this together. La Russa, who lives in Phoenix, expects to be at spring training on an almost daily basis, watching players and prospects and being available if Grifol or anyone else wants to talk baseball. So I still haven't made my spring training plans yet. I'm hoping we can get out there again. this year in early March. So if he's available, maybe I'll talk to him. Maybe I'll talk to
I think you
TLR.
should get a book him.
Just,
Book him on the show. I mean, give him
I mean, if he's there on a
code.
daily basis and just looking to talk baseball, he wasn't extremely specific on who he's looking to talk to with, but I will talk with. Why not? Right? He's got one hell of a resume.
Isn't it?
And just, I think,
Isn't it
what were you
odd
thinking,
that they
sir? Is
keep-
probably my first question. What
Isn't
are
it?
you?
Isn't it odd that they have to keep coming out and defining what he's doing
Yes.
with the organization?
It is.
Is this
It's
the oddest
unsettling.
thing in the world? Like,
Yeah.
let's set the record straight on what Tony does. Let's set the
And
record
after
straight
all
on
of
how-
that, after I read that article and the quote, I still don't really know exactly what you do. Or you just sit kind of in a corner on a stool, like, and if anybody wants to come and talk to you, or do you?
Does he have a booth set up like at a job fair? Like he's giving out pens and things like that, and it's come and talk baseball with the crazy Tony La Russa.
In that article, it talks about all of his health issues. Glad, very, very happy he got, all the medical attention that he needed. It sounded like he was in some pretty bad shape, and so I hey, glad you got all that. It's just and people are saying like, well, when is he going to go away? Like, never. As long as Jerry Reinsdorf's at a point, I think, where he's just like, I don't care. I really don't care anymore. I'm making money. I'm going to have La Russa stick around. And he might not be the only one. I might drag Jim Leland. He's got his Hall of Fame credentials now. I might bring Leland back just to talk to people and put his, scent in. Nothing would surprise me now.
Wow, that would be something. Nothing says get excited about White Sox baseball than Jim Leland. They should have had Sox Fest with Jim Leland and TLR and Jerry, and the fans have gone wild.
Well,
fans gone wild.
Pat, 2023 was the 40th anniversary of the 83 team. So when you were telling me a couple weeks ago that you got insight that the Sox didn't know what players were going to be on the team, if there was going to be a general manager, we didn't know what a panel would look like. Tap into your rich history. Throw a panel, celebrate the anniversary of the 93 team. If you still are on good terms with any of those players, bring back, members of the 83 team. And folks would eat it up. It's like, hey, great. You're unsure on your current team. That makes sense. I mean, it's not a shocker, but like, we'll celebrate the, historical past.
Well, it's an opportunity that obviously missed again. So we'll see what happens next year. See if they can start the planning now.
Yeah. Well, it takes some time here. Pedro Grifol quote of the week. We do this at the end of the podcast every week. Still looking for a sponsor. The folks from Super Rope, it's the holidays. Everybody's busy. Haven't heard back.
Some companies shut it down this time of year, Nick. And
gotcha.
You might start after January 1 and re-engage in those conversations.
It's a fine product. It's a time-tested product, and I think it would go well.
It is
sponsoring her. Yeah, absolutely. And Pedro is something else. So here is your Pedro Grifol quote of the week. Find me a championship where you got 5 guys getting interviewed and they all talk about how good they are. Every championship won, every good team talks about coming together as a group and the love that they have for each other and how much they like to play for each other. That's what we are going to create. That's important to us. That was a fairly recent quote. So, again, we could say everything we want to say about roster, but the fact that there's also these other things that you can't define and you can't quite force, like culture, like chemistry, like identity, there's a lot going on with this ball club.
Well, every time you read from Pedro, it gets me more and more inspired, and I can see why he's so coveted and loved by the front office and Chris Getz.
Yeah. He's got he's a wordsmith. He really is.
Yes.
There really needs to be just a calendar, like one of those desktop calendars with just a new Grifol motivational quote each day.
Oh,
that you
I'm
can
glad
start
you
your
defined
day.
it
And
that way. I
just,
was thinking like you were talking about some type of, firefighter calendar with Pedro Gafal.
no, 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 no,
No,
no.
not
I
that.
want the quotes. I want the inspiration, the
Okay,
wisdom from
got it.
this man and
Got it.
everything that he says. Pat, we call this therapy, and it really is. I'm feeling a little bit better. Hopefully you are, and hopefully everybody else is.
I feel great. I
Good.
can't. I mean, I will need another session, but I right at this moment, I feel fantastic.
Yeah. We'll talk about what's going to happen. I mean, next week, Christmas Eve. I know you're going to be traveling a little bit. We'll talk about the scheduling. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. You'll get notified when a new episode's coming up, and I'll try to keep everybody up to date on social media. But stay tuned. We're trying to do this, regularly, all off season long, as we head right into that magical time. Late March, snowing, and it's baseball on the south side. Pat, always a pleasure, buddy.
Hey, it was great to join you again on this episode, Nick. The hours go by like very fast, as always. I can't
Yeah.
believe it. And yeah, exciting. And again, hopefully you had a great birthday. Looking forward to getting into the Christmas spirit here this week. And hopefully, if we don't talk to everybody, have a great holiday season, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Pat, very much. Appreciate the birthday wishes from you, and so many others reached out. Yeah, I got about 3/4 of a Portillo's chocolate cake that I gotta continue to work on, but was going to
To
do it
work on.
during the.
They're feeding on it like a lion. Like it's just like just
Well, I
on the
was going to
ground.
eat it during the podcast, but I know that that Benetti got in trouble for eating different
Well,
foods.
I'm not going to
So
judge you. You can
thank
eat
you.
on
All right,
the podcast. Are you
yeah.
kidding me? Look who you're talking to.
Folks, really appreciate you joining in. Pass this podcast along. Find it absolutely everywhere. We're on Twitter X at Good Guys TB. We've got a Facebook fan page. For Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.